Hello, my name is Peter Cinnamon and this is Kicking Match, a podcast all about the Irish League coming at you weekly. And what an 168 hours it has been, my friend. Newry fans would sign up for Groundhog Week if they could right now. Glentoran followers, meanwhile, are starting to wonder if they've seen this season before. Larne fans still aren't convinced they haven't actually been living in a dream for the past 5 years. Sports fans have been pitching themselves every morning for the past 6, hoping this has all just been a nightmare. So, strap yourself in for a league that has more twists, turns and shocking reveals than a sit-down interview with Piers Morgan, because if there's one thing I can promise you, is that between now and the end of this pod, I will never betray you. I could have started recording this podcast on Saturday morning if I wanted to, but sure, there was 7 days worth of games and action that I wanted to get into. And here, snuggling up beside me to tell me the story of the weekend that was, is a pod debutante, a sublime sports journalist who's almost covered more cold Tuesday night games at Sangmore Park than there has been refereeing controversies in the league this year. A big welcome to Steven Crawford from the Daily Mirror / Belfast Live.
Hey Peter, thanks very much for having me on. I'm looking forward to this here.
Great to have you. Great to have a big proper scribe. This is your bread and butter, and I'm going to kick off with a question that I have had written down every single time I've had one of you journos in that I've been dying to ask, and I always think I'll pepper it in later, but I'm starting it off strong this time so I don't miss out. You spend your weekends, your Tuesdays, whatever, going down and watching these games, writing it out, and I recently hit my 1 year anniversary of getting stuck in myself and doing the radio side of it and now doing the podcasting part of this. And as a man who's probably written so many bits of copy, is there a bit of football cliche that you love, hate, and is there a local bit of football chat, football, whatever it is, cliche that you always try to sneak in, or is written on a big blackboard in your office saying, do not say this word or phrase?
Well, one that sticks to mind is that I'll not mention the manager, but we were interviewing him after a match one day, and he came out with the phrase that apples are apples. So that so that's always stuck with me throughout my career, and I like to throw that up to a few of the other fellow journalists that was there that day. But yeah, the wee chuckle to myself that day. But yeah, you've been covering so many post-match interviews, you hear them all, and it's the game of two halves, and we'll bounce back stronger. And it was funny. I was chatting in the press box yesterday at Portadown about asking managers on a Saturday for a preview for the next game, which is usually 7 days away. And you get the standard, we'll come into training this week, we'll see who's fit, we'll see who's nursing injuries, and we'll go again type of thing. So we've heard it all down the years.
That is so funny you say that, because I literally put up a post this week talking about what, particularly when it gets to Irish League managers, what are the cliches that are used. And there's some absolute corkers, the hard place to come to, game at a time, there's no easy games in this league. That stuff. Like, I mean, if you need to go to my page and read through them all, because there was some stormers. But we've got you on for a big week, Mr. Crawford. There was great games on the pitch, but there was lots to talk about afterwards. We'll start on Friday, a game that you were at up the Coleraine Showgrounds. The game ends 0-0. But a lot of the talking points is based around comments made by Glentoran manager Mick McDermott after the game. It's a heat of the moment. It's after the game. Glentoran haven't got the result they wanted. Their star man, Conor McMenamin, he was stretchered off. He was later to have been found that he had a leg fracture. He's going to be out for a number of weeks, a broken leg, pretty much. We'll start with the tackle. Watching it live, was it a red card? Because it wasn't given one during the game.
First of all, I'd like to wish Conor a speedy recovery, and it's just a shame that any player gets injured, particularly someone of Conor's ability, who's really helped light up the league in the last few years. So hopefully it won't be too long until he's back in the pitch again, Peter. I honestly think the two tackles, Bobby Burns and the Dean Jarvis, were possibly red cards. I think it should have been red cards on the night. I think there's been a lot of chat on social media about Bobby's saying that he won the ball, but we all know that just because he won the ball doesn't mean that he can't escape a red card. I think he was a wee bit reckless. Now, as far as Dean's tackle goes, I think it was a very, very poor challenge. I think he's probably reflect on it and think, nobody sets out to injure a player. I think that's a common myth. People say, but boys get in hard, but I don't think anybody in football ever goes out to injure a player. I think it's been very unfortunate. He's caught Connor, and Connor's ended up with a leg fracture. But I do think, yes, those two tackles should have been red cards on Friday night. And I think during the course of the game, things were bubbling over. I don't know if it's a result of what happened beforehand, but I think it was a very tense evening. It was a very hard fought game. Obviously, no goals, and it was right in the balance until the last few minutes. And it just always threatened to bubble over.
Particularly after that challenge, it just set a very different feeling for the game.
Yeah.
And you can appreciate that Mick's looking at this where he's got a player who is injured and the tackle had vigor, it came in with speed, and as well as that, there's bigger things people are talking about. We are only weeks away from January. There was all this talk of what could happen, what's the future of his career. He's really in the peak of it now, and to be injured from a tackle that was reckless feels frustrating. But what's really stood out to me from the comments is talking about how the league should protect these players and not try to hurt them. And that's where my ears pricked up, because when managers are talking about other players in the league and suggesting that they are out to hurt players, here's a quote, teams have resorted to try and break his legs. That's a whole other ball game. You can say a tackle was dangerous, he shouldn't have done it, and you can call him out for it, and you can call out for punishment, and he's clearly calling out that should have been a red card. But to suggest that Jarvis came into that tackle with the intent of hurting someone, of injuring a fellow professional in this case, I know it's the heat of the moment, but that's a really strong statement to make about another player on the pitch.
Yeah, I do have a lot of sympathy for managers, particularly when it's live games and they're thrust in front of a camera and something like that happens and their emotions are all over the place and they don't have time to maybe step back and reflect on the situation. They're obviously worried about their player and how severe that's going to be. But I do agree with you. I think when you start using language like that, where you're almost saying that people are doing this intentionally, it's a dangerous route to go down, because next week one of the Glens players could make a tackle and end up hurting someone totally innocently. Like, as I said previously, I don't think any manager in the Irish league or any player sets out with the purpose to injure someone. I think they're all 100% honest players. Sometimes tackles go wrong, and it's horrific when they do go wrong. But I think to say that someone is going out to harm another player is not the road that we want to go down. I understand that Conor McMenamin, fantastic player, and Mix wants to protect his players, but every player in the league should be protected. Not just the best players. Every player that steps out on the pitch should be protected from having bad tackles. But of course, unfortunately, we've seen it all down through the years. Bad tackles happen, and players end up injured, and it's terrible when it happens to them.
And players get injured off tackles that are fairly standard. I think of Ben Kennedy, is a player that's been talked a lot about in this podcast. His injury came from a fairly simple tackle coming together. That wasn't a big, vicious tackle there. And in this situation, it all does line up where we can say the tackle's poor and it has resulted in injury. Talk that the referee should protect players from this. The referee can't send them off before it's happened. So it's the referees are there to take control of the game, and this is what these cards are for. They're there for warnings. They're there to try and stamp this out. He put it out to the press, and he said, I'm asking the press to look at 3 different instances, and he names the Matt Clark tackle against Linfield, when Cliftonville and Linfield. He said the Jeff Hughes tackle and the Josh Robinson one. They are all tackles that are on that byline. Let's say it's out on whatever side of the pitch on the Glentoran right, where Connor's going down. He has the ball. He is going for it. The Jeff Hughes one, he sticks a leg out and really takes him out quite physically with his leg. Wasn't a red card. That's just a very strong boarding tackle. The Matt Clark one, he dives in at the line. I've seen them given at the time. The one that I must say, looking back on it, you can see them on the Kick and Match page. The one that stood out to me at the time was definitely the Josh Robinson one. If there's one where I look at that and go, it's a red card and it should have been a red card. It's that one because he does dive in. But I'm not saying any of these players try to injure him at all. And one thing as well that stands out is that I feel as though it perpetuates a negative and false stereotype about this league. I know we're sitting here with a man who has a podcast called Kicking Match, but guys, it is ironic. It's covering the league because this is what people say about the league when they're trying to be disparaging about it. They say it's just about, it's a kicking match. It's about violence and thuggery, and it frustrates me when that's not the case. Is every game free flowing football? Absolutely not. But I utterly reject any suggestion that this is just a game played by players who are there to injure others rather than play it in the deck. I would like to echo your sentiments about Conor McMenamin. It's sad to see any player get injured for a significant amount of time. But we'll reflect back to the game. It ends 0-0. I think that's a fair result. No team really did enough that gave them clear daylight between them and the other team, I felt.
No, I think the Glen started very well. Danny Perkins had a chance in the first few minutes, and then Connor had two good opportunities, which he created out of nothing himself. Corrigan responded with Matthew Shevlin hit the post with a header, and Aaron Jarvis then went close. But after that, there wasn't really a big amount of chances in the game, and probably the whole incident before half time just nullified that a bit, and it became more of a war of attrition as such, where no team was really wanting to give up space, and there wasn't much created. It was, there was a lot of itty bitty fouls, and thought the ref was maybe a wee bit pernickety with some things, but as you said, nobody really stood out and really went on to try and win the game. But I know Warren Kearney speaking afterwards, he was pleased with the response of his side after their poor first half against Crusaders the other night. So I think he's hoping that Corrigan can carry that sort of resolve going forward, so that they're not shipping the poor goals that they have done recently against Cliftonville and Crusaders. So maybe he'll be more pleased with the point rather than what Mick would be pleased with.
For sure. He talked about after the game that he went into it like he feels he should go into any game at home looking for the 3 points. He will be the happier, clearly, with the point. And we reflect on the past 7 days. Crusaders did go up to the showgrounds on the Tuesday night, and at least surprising to me, came in and the snatch and grab just took them apart at times and really showed up a lot of Colerane's defensive frailties. Do you feel as though if Coleraine are to rebuild themselves somewhat after not being as solid as they have been previously at the back, is that where they're going to build a push on this season? It all starts at the back.
Yeah, I think, if you're conceding silly goals every week, you're never going to win games. And more of Orange's comments after the game was about the amount of players that he's brought in and let go over the summer. Now, in the last few years when Coleraine were pushing at the top of the league, it's maybe only been 2 or 3 that have come in, and maybe 2 or 3 going this summer. It was 8 or 9 come in, and the same probably left. And I always think that takes a while for players to bed in. Everybody gets to know each other. I think the defence has changed probably every game. They haven't really come across a settled back four. They've tinkered with a back three at times as well. But on Friday night, I thought they looked a lot more solid than they had done in previous weeks. I think Conor McDermott has so much ability. He could play anywhere across the back four, and he's such an asset. He pings that diagonal ball out of the back four, and he's picked Matthew Shevlin out so many times with that there. So I think if they can stick this back four, and then you have the likes of Stevie Larry coming back in, it's going to help them going forward. It's going to be a big push for them to break into that top 3, top 4 because of what's in front of them and the ground they have to make up. I think they'll like the challenge, and I think Orange just wants them to be competitive, especially against those teams that's in and around them.
I think that is a point that I've not really seen reflected elsewhere, where yes, we're all hyping up how much this team has improved on paper with the likes of Lynch and other players coming in, but you still have to blend the team, you still have to make it all work together, and Glentoran are a very good example of that, where there wasn't a huge upheaval in the squad during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhat of their success is built on the bedrock of the foundation that they were able to build and work on last season. Clearly, the end of last season didn't really work out well. And so far up to this week, it looked as though they had really got themselves going. There's no team in this league that's had their flowers given to them more than Glentoran. We were looking, where is the turnaround? Where is the little dip going to be? Well, we've seen it. Here it is. They lose to Glenavon at home, which was predicted by us here, but we'll put it there. Glenavon's given everybody trouble, and they then go up to the Coleraine Showgrounds and leave with only 1 point. And there's 1 from 6. Larne still push on, and when we sat there and thought Glentoran looked like they're going to run away with it, they now sit here. Jay Donnelly's out of the team now with injury. They still have Perkis coming in. They're without Plum. And teams are clearly going to have dips. But this is where McDermott's going to earn his money now. It's about trying to not let these big dramas become the distraction. He says after the game, I'm not worried about McMenamin out. We can still bring in other pieces. But clearly when Glentoran have, if anything goes wrong, they start to worry, oh no, is this where the slide comes? It's not going to be made any easier without Conor Mack.
No, and he's been such a key player for the Glens since he moved there. And when you take someone who has quality, now the Glens have a fantastic squad. They've got plenty of players that can come in, but have they got a player that can go and win a game on his own, like the way Conor Mack comes? But at the same point, it's up now to the players in that team to go and make up for the loss of Conor. I think these next 2 games especially is a big tester for the Glens. Sometimes I think I can understand why Mick was angry on Friday night and he vented his frustration, but sometimes I think keep that in house and use that as a bit of a motivation for the players to say, let the whole world be against us. Let's go out and prove them wrong. I think sometimes when you go public, then the teams use that against you and go, listen to them. They think this, and we know in the past last year, I think the cup debacle sort of scuppered their season for them. They let that affect them too much. This is a big tester now. Can they get by this latest setback and just get on and get back to doing what they do best, and that's winning football games like they have been doing since the start of August?
I couldn't agree more. It feels like a big public drama is what derailed them last season, and despite how thrilling their start has been, they're now looking up at a team above them, and it just shows how competitive the league has been. And yes, they lose a player of the month in McMenamin, but I do not have a vote in this Football Writers Player of the Month. But if I did, I am banging the table for the man of the moment, Micheál Glynn. What a player! Oh my goodness, from single-handedly grabbing Glenavon and getting 2 goals with his running against Cliftonville last week. He pops up again against Glentoran off the bench, and then here against Linfield. Yes, they do not come to Windsor and take 3 points home, but if Glenavon were going to get anything from this game, and if they did, they should have got a big seat, a big throne for this man. His goal at Windsor was sublime. And I am going to back Gary Hamilton in his complaints about a decision. That man should have had a penalty in the box at 1-1.
Gary, I don't know, he pulls these players out of anywhere at times. Like he's fantastic just at bringing these people that nobody's really heard of. And I know Micheál was on loan at Dungan last year, but he didn't really get I didn't think he had a really consistent run of form, and Gary's obviously brought him in this season. He's settled in there, and as you say, he's for a defender, he's proven his worth on the other end. So yeah, it's unbelievable. But yeah, like what is it they say that the smaller teams don't get these decisions at times, particularly at Windsor. But Gary's had his run in with officials this season. I was at Windsor Park a few weeks ago when they were very unlucky to lose the game 3-2. And Gary was lamenting about the decisions that had gone against him. He was complaining about the one that went against him that night for the equaliser. So I just think sometimes when your luck's out. But Glenavon just need to, like, on the back of that Glentoran one, it's a pity they just couldn't even get a point at Windsor, because it would have just helped them keep that run going.
They are piling men forward. They're getting these goals. And the one thing you're probably looking at on the other side of it is, well, they keep conceding. I'm going to have to also give a little parade for Rory Brown. He concedes 2, but a fantastic save in that game that I saw. I talk about on this podcast sometimes about giving awards to goalkeepers to making goals look great. The ball comes in from the Linfield left. It goes along the floor. McDaid has a boot on it. And I mean, 99.9 times this ball is trickling into the net. But up jumps Rory Brown just to swat that ball away. I could not believe it looking back. That was amazing. And just a point on the thing I was talking about briefly there, the Micheál Glynn penalty, at least in my eyes, I'll agree with Gary here. The ball comes from deep. Micheál Glynn's got it. He's in the box. He gets into the 6-yard box. He's far to the left-hand side of that 6-yard box. The ball is at his feet, and Chris Johns comes down. He doesn't get the ball, but he does get Micheál Glynn. And I thought, wow, that should have been a penalty. It doesn't go the way of Glenavon. It goes the way of Linfield. All thanks to that man, McDaid. Talking about cliches, that was a thumper. He rifled it in from outside the box. I know people like ourselves have been talking about McDaid and saying, yes, I know he's not doing well, but he has the skill, he has the ability, he's a hard-working boy. I think this game showed you everything that he has. He was running the channels. He was putting himself into the danger area. He was there to get on the end of balls, and he well deserved that goal against Glenavon, I thought.
Yeah, I think Robbie probably be first to admit that he's maybe a wee bit frustrated with his goal return since he made the switch across from Glentoran, but you can't fault his work ethic and his what he contributes to the team. But as we all know, strikers are judged on goals. It doesn't really matter. People don't look at what you're doing off the ball, and it's a bit harsh at times on him. But I think that there was a big moment for him, not only scoring the first at Windsor, but for it being a winner and such late in the game. I think that'll give him a real confidence boost now. And the Blues, I think, need that guy that's going to come in and score regularly for them, because since sort of Shane Lavery's left, they haven't really replaced him. And I think if you're going to go and win titles, like the Blues have done successfully in the past, you've always need this guy who's going to chip in with at least 20 goals a season.
There was something very familiar. I'm going to say eerily familiar if you're one of those top teams chasing for the title this year, because previous times in this season, I think this is a game that Linfield fall to a draw or they don't get a result, but they kept fighting against a team that was in form, a team that was pushing on against them, a team that ran them close only a few weeks ago. But Linfield stand tall, get a goal within the last 10 minutes, and they're not too far away. I know it's early to look at the table, but after all this dreadful season that Linfield have had, yes, they're still only, and I'll say only because I think it really has been poor, there's only 9 points off Larne on top, and they've got them to come round a number of times. You can't count out this Linfield team.
No, and I think people have done in the past, and it's been to their peril. It's been here and they've done it that many times. And the thing I always liked about David Healy is I'm going to come out with a cliche here, is he doesn't get too carried away when they won, and they're too carried away.
One game at a time, mate.
That's it. But I think that mentality of his rubs off on the players. You know what I mean? And whenever they go through a bad run, he takes so much of that pressure away from the players. Like even whenever they were going through that bad spell a few weeks ago, he seemed to carry the whole lot for them and let them go out and play football. And I think he's been around the block. He's played at a high level. He knows the score. And as you say now, they're going about their business very, very quietly. People sort of discounted them here, and suddenly they've got 3-4 wins in a bounce, and nobody's really taking notice of that.
He cuts a very stoic figure, and as someone who watched him play for Northern Ireland, I just think of him being this exuberant force, running away at Windsor Park, scoring against England, scoring against Spain. Yeah. Is he even like that behind the scenes when you guys are scribbling away at questions? Do you see a lighter side, or does he have that quite serious and imposing demeanour throughout?
No, he's got a very good sense of humour. I would say it's a typical Northern Irish dry sense of humour. He likes a bit of banter, and but he's so passionate about the job and Linfield Football Club. You can tell that with how he comes across and what he speaks about, and you can see how much the job means to him. Obviously, he's had his troubles there too, and I think last year he spoke about maybe getting abuse from certain sections, and I think that really affected him. But he loves that club. He loves it with a complete passion, and you can't discount his record. It's phenomenal what he's done, and people sometimes brush it off with, "Oh, look at their resources, look what they really do." there's plenty of clubs in all the whole of football that have had plenty of resources and won nothing. Like, so you have to have the mentality right, and that's one thing about you have it. I think the team that goes out onto the pitch, they may not always win, but they go out with the right mentality.
There's something about Linfield this season that reminds me of like the T1000 in Terminator 2. I feel like Larne and Glentoran are rushing away. They're going down this motorway there, Sarah Connor and whatever, they're going down, and they just think, oh, we're gonna get away, and then they just turn around behind them, and here comes Linfield, this metallic force ready to crawl back. So we'll just see how scary they can be as the season goes on. And you said there about McDaid saying strikers are judged on goals. Well, I'm wondering when we're going to crown and give all the plaudits to Ryan Curran. Surely he
Mhm.
is the most underrated player in this league. He grabs 2 goals against Dungannon on Saturday, one in each half. He's sitting there with 9 goals, one off being the top goal scorer in this league. He scored bag loads last year. He just goes along and he gets goals, and he's the man that when this Cliftonville team are on these big runs, he's the man that keeps popping up, getting these goals and getting on with it. What is so great about this man?
I think he must be an absolute joy to manage. And I think that's why Paddy McLaughlin loves him so much, because he can just go out and tell him, I need you to do this job first today, Ryan, and he'll go and does it. And as you say, then eventually he inevitably he pops up with a goal. He just has this knack of arriving at the right time, getting the goal, particularly whenever it's crucial goals. It's not scoring whenever they're 2 or 3 up. It's vital goals, maybe the first goal or the winner for them. And I'm surprised, as you say, that more people don't talk about Ryan Curran as being one of the best strikers in the league. When there's not a big acclaim about him, because I think it is because he is maybe a guy who keeps himself out of the headlines. He doesn't really do a lot of interviews and stuff like that. There, people maybe gloss over him at times, but I think if you'd asked any managers in the league, they would all take him in their starting 11s.
100%. I feel I should sneak him into my fantasy lineup. I need to start believing in this man if I want to get points. He's just so industrious, and he showed that on Saturday against Dungannon. That place down there in Stangmore Park, that's been tough and tight for some of these big teams because Dungannon know what way they're going to play. But when you look at the goals, you can't help but think, oh, Dungannon just can't get out of their own way. The first one falls to Ryan, and this is a big commotion in the box, and he's there to push on through, but a strong foot on it, and then it just bobbles in past Declan Dunn in the goal, and then the second half, he's there to rise up and get the ball in the net for Cliftonville. A very rudimentary win for Cliftonville, just one of those very diligent and efficient wins from them, and they'll want to push on and keep things going. Dungannon, they've just got to hope these results for Portadown keep on going, and at least Portadown are consistent in one manner. They welcomed the top of the table Larne to Shamrock Park on Saturday. You were there. They did something for the first 35 minutes, and then after that it all fell apart, really, didn't it, for the Ports?
I felt really sorry for Ned Curry, because obviously he'd wanted a response from his side after the disappointment against Carrick Rangers during the week, and I think, as you say, for the first 30 minutes they got that, and then just switched off from corner, let the ball come through, and then nobody's marking Leroy Miller 3 yards out, and you could just see that just knocked the whole confidence. We were speaking tonight afterwards, and he said that the confidence is a major thing at the minute, and whenever they go behind, it's so hard to try and lift them up again. And the way that they started the start of the second half, when things just completely fell apart, you could see that in the team. But I think Niall was staying positive. He was saying, like, if we can keep building in that first half an hour, keep being hard to break down. There was a bit of a defensive crisis on Saturday. Lee Upton and Harry Beverland were both missing. So hopefully, if you get one of those back, it might help bring a bit of experience in there. But I think come January, it's just about trying to maybe recycle the squad and now get a few players in, and hopefully can kick them on for the second half of the season.
Larne look like they've absolutely smashed Portadown, getting 5 goals on Tuesday. They get loads of goals against Dungannon at home. But I would say that actually Portadown did stand up strong, did look good there for a lot of it, kept their shape, and then the corner comes in, and Leroy Miller will not score an easier goal where it just falls to him in the 6-yard box and he just taps it in. Second goal's it's just a poor bit of control from the Portadown player, and then Larne blitz Portadown in about 5-10 minutes from the first half. 3-0 it was all over, 5-0 it was dead and buried, and I tweeted out on Saturday Larne scored more goals in 53 minutes at Shamrock Park than Portadown have scored all season in the league. Portadown haven't scored since that defeat against Newry mid-October. You have seen plenty of teams in this league go up and down and try to fight for survival and try and battle their way up for titles. What is your assessment of this Portadown team? Because it was looking tough for them at the start. It's looking very poor right now. I know Niall's in there looking to change things up. He's got a massive challenge on his hands. But in the pantheon of the past 15 years of teams in this league, the stats say they're right at the bottom. Does it look like that on the pitch as well?
I think at this moment in time, they are where they are type of thing. They deserve to be at the bottom of the league because obviously they've only picked up 1 point. The only positive they can take from that is they're still within touching distance of Dungannon and Swifts. If that gap starts to open up, moves to maybe 5-7 points, and you're saying, well, really, are Portadown going to pick up enough points to try and haul them in? Because really, realistically, 11th place is where you're aiming for. That's going to be the big tester. If they can get to January and still be in that same distance, I think that'll give everybody a boost. If Niall can recruit well, maybe get out a few players that he maybe doesn't fancy and give a rattle of it in the second half of the season, as I say, if they play Dungannon and lose again or don't maybe close the gap, then that adds more pressure to the situation. And you don't want to be sitting there cut adrift maybe 10 points, maybe come February and thinking the season's over type of thing.
There's only 3 points between them and Dungannon after 15 games having been played. And up there in 9th place with 15 points, Newry. There is daylight between them and Portadown, and there is daylight between them and Dungannon Swifts. Fewer fan bases in this league have had a better 7 days than Newry have. Like, they've been through the ringer. They come back against Ballymena there on Tuesday night. They get back against a team they lost to on the Friday previously with a last-minute goal. They were absolutely loving it. There were scenes down there at the showgrounds, the players running into the crowd, and then they welcomed Carrick Rangers down to the showgrounds, and they just showed exactly what they're all about. The tenacity, the dogged nature of them. Every single one of those goals are made through hard work, getting your head down and chasing after the ball. And Carrick could not handle it. Newry 4, Carrick Rangers 1. It's definitely a bit early to say that they're looking pretty rosy, but what is it about this Newry team that's just given them such a really solid start in their return to the league? Because they've got nippy and quite dangerous players all across that front line.
Again, I think it's what the manager, Darren Mullen, has created down there. Like, I have a lot of time for Darren. I think he's a fantastic manager. And like, what has he achieved? Like, after they went down the last time, it could have been quite easy for Darren just to say, I've had my turn, I'll move on. But he was determined to try and bring him up again. He's recruited very well, as you say. Their front line is frightening. They've got a lot of pace in there. They've got a lot of quality. And I think anybody going to showgrounds will not relish it because they love playing there. They've got a great crowd behind them. And we've already seen this season already. They've got a number of great results down there. I didn't foresee Carrick Rangers getting turned over 4-1, considering the sort of form that Carrick's been, but it just shows you Newry more than capable of taking points off anybody. And I think it's their home form that'll keep them safe this season. Obviously, it's a wee bit more difficult when they go away on the road, but I think at home they'll be more than a match for anybody.
You're absolutely right. I'm calling it. I'm going to get the sign printed out. Newry Showgrounds, a hard place to go to. This is where they're getting their points. They give the big teams a run. They give them a scare. And when teams down towards the bottom, in that bottom half, they're getting their wins. They've got their wins against Dungannon. They've got their wins now against Carrick. And I guess Portadown and Glenavon, well, they're not too far away. They're just up the road. I know the showgrounds isn't technically in Armagh, but right now you can't handle these boys within that little area of Armagh and Down. And Newry have just done it. They've built themselves up. And what I find so brilliant about Newry is that, and I was talking to somebody about this over the weekend, about how Newry is one of those teams that were in the championship that were sat there without a whole season of football. Yet here they are with a real strong group of players. And I cannot, like, fans cannot be happier with the way it's gone. I know there's only one result, but they're looking pretty good right now with the rest of the season when they thought they were going to be sitting there with the likes of Dungannon and Portadown.
I think Darren and the club have created this real sense of community down there, and it means something to play for Newry City. And obviously, they've had their battles with Warren Point over the years, and that's the more not they'll meet them and all this here. But I think it definitely does mean something to the players to be involved at Newry City, and you can see that in how they play. And Darren gets the absolute maximum out of everybody in that team. And people may look at that side, and they're maybe not household names, but Darren Mullen won't care as long as they're going out there and giving him a shift every week and pulling off results like they have been in recent weeks.
We have a slightly pesky Monday night game that's threw a spanner in the works to this program or this podcast recording schedule, but we'll cover it now and force me to get my edit nice and quick and fast, or maybe get it out to you a day early. Ballymena and Crusaders clash on the big fancy Sky Sports TV cameras. Doesn't seem to be much of a novelty as much as it was many moons ago. Talking about these teams, you saw the last time Crusaders had an outing. They have been dipping slightly recently. I thought that Coleraine game was really going to show if they had the character and the fight that I had saw them have only a few games previously before that defeat. That was quite an impressive win against Coleraine up there on a Tuesday night, I thought.
They started like a house on fire, and I think that was the big message from Steven after the disappointment at Larne, where they got blitzed inside 45 minutes. I think he was saying, look, we need to come out the traps quickly, and they did that. It was 42 seconds. Young Macaulay Snellgrove scored the opener, and then that man of the moment, Philip Larry, bags himself another goal. It's an incredible record. I think he's 50 goals for Crusaders, and a fifth of them have come this season alone. He's definitely eating his Weetabix this season, so he is.
Big time. He's definitely sitting there in my centre mid of team of the season so far, but we'll not get into that old drama. They do take on Ballymena. Is that a team that you've been able to see much this season? From when I've seen them, I thought that they have really good parts to their play, really strong players, but it just hasn't really all come together in one game.
Ballymena are one of the teams that I haven't actually watched so far this season, so I'm not able to judge them on their current performances. I'm just sort of going by what the stats bear up, Peter. But as you say, they've been a bit hot and cold. Like, some weeks that you're expecting them to win, then they end up dropping points, and then other weeks when you don't really give them a shout, they're picking something out of the bag. So it's probably a frustrating time for David Jeffrey. I know we had the troubles earlier in the season where there was talk of resignations and things like this here, but he's a very hard man to replace. How do you replace David Jeffrey, like, from what he's done for that club especially? So I think they will turn things around. It's just how long it's going to get them to turn things around, because with Glenavon there is picking up points. Are they the ones that's knocking on the top six door rather maybe than Ballymena at the minute?
It does really highlight how this seventh place and into the European playoffs aids in creating a bit more of a fight, a bit more of an incentive to keep going and to keep push on, because Ballymena, I do not think, are going to be a top six side, even if they go on a massive run. But a good run on turning things around could get them into that playoff. I would not count them out of seventh place at all just yet. Clearly, it's so early days, so that'll be a difficult task when they go to Seaview, I must say. But shifting gears and going towards the games that'll be taking place this coming week, it's a Friday night game. They've got the cameras shining bright on them once again. There'll be a few home comforts where Linfield go to Ballymena. Do you feel strongly one way or the other? I do agree that Linfield have been stuttering in the games that they've played quite recently. That 0-0 draw against Cliftonville at home, they were able to get the victory against Glenavon. It took them really until late on to power through and really deal with Portadown at away at Shamrock Park. Do you think they can do it on a Friday night up at Ballymena, or do you suddenly see a revolution for David Jeffries' men?
I think it'll be another tough task for David Healy. As you say, it's not been easy in recent weeks, but they have managed to grind out results, and that's probably maybe a bit more pleasing for David that they've shown a bit of character to keep going and pick up the 3 points. But again, it's so hard to call with Ballymena because you just don't know what Ballymena United is going to turn up. I think it probably suits them to play against the likes of Linfield. The guys will be up for it, and they'll be out, and they're trying to make life difficult for them. But you just think that the quality Linfield has, that there's match winners in their team, and they'll probably go on to be able to snatch the 3 points.
I think so too. In regards to Ballymena, this kind of suits them when they have those players coming at them. They know what they need to do. They're not going against a Newry where they have that decision to make to sit back or push on. They know they're going to have overlaps and men flooding forward. And when you have someone with as much guile and as much experience as Davy McDade, I can see him getting a goal from a breakaway. And this is super, super tricky for Linfield. And I am going to say that they will get away with it 2-1. But similar to that Glenavon game, I do not think it will be easy. And it might have to be another McDade hero performance. The Blues fans never doubted him, and he's going to get them more points again on Friday night. That, again, is going to be streamed via the BBC. We stay on Friday night, where Dungannon go to Larne, and this is something I talked about on the podcast last week, and I just thought I would put this to yourself with someone of your amount of experience as well. Friday nights are clearly something that's happened a lot more this year. A big part of it is the streamed games, and I think as fans, we've really enjoyed that rhythm of jumping in and seeing what's happening on a Friday and seeing teams that you wouldn't usually see, and it gets everybody in and talking about it. This game isn't on TV, and what I talked about last week was that Larne are a full-time team. This is the best season I think they've ever had, it's fair to say, in the top division. They are pushing for the title, and they're a team who see their fan base and building a brand as this team that plays on Friday nights quite regularly. And the question I asked is, both teams agreed to play this fixture, but are Fridays potentially giving the full-time teams an advantage over the part-time teams, where players are potentially coming from work, they're traveling to away games on certain scenarios? Because when I look at the future of this league, I wonder, is Friday nights at a core date, is that going to be the league rather than a Saturday at 3 o'clock? This is the first season I would really look at it and go, we're not a 3 o'clock on a Saturday league. That isn't us. That's not our bread and butter. It's clearly the majority of the games. But is there a potential fairness question here, or am I looking into it a bit too much?
No, I would agree with you. I was chatting a bit about this before Corrigan's game against Glentoran on Friday night, because obviously the Glens being full time on Friday, they're able to probably meet up, go through a few things before the match, go for a nice meal, maybe a massage, or chill out. Or as you say, Korean players, the vast majority of them are working maybe late in the afternoon. They're rushing home to get something to eat, and then they're heading down to the ground. And I think there is that slight advantage there that players have, that are maybe more better prepared in terms of themselves. I don't think as a team they're not prepared, because the managers will have them coached in tactics that way, but it's just that mentality thing. If you're working and then going to play football, and you're coming against somebody who isn't doing that. So I think there is that slight advantage there. As you say, Larne have gone down this route where they've played a lot of Friday night games. I think it works for them. I think they get big crowds there. But again, it probably works for them because you say it's because they are full time, and they're able to have the guys in and work on it, and it is a bit of a disadvantage to the part time teams just coming to play them.
The only time this season they haven't got a result or win on a Friday is when they've played against other full-time teams, when they lost to Glentoran and they drew against Crusaders. This is not a Larne thing, but it just if it's a TV game, I somewhat understand where you both agree to it, and that's grand. This situation where it's both been agreed to, and I wonder, will these teams in the bottom six or any real teams that aren't full time, when they get asked, oh, whoever it is, do you want to play on a Friday, even though it's not a TV game? Will they go, actually, I don't know if we will, because perhaps the Saturday gives us a better opportunity. We will see, particularly when you're traveling away. It's just interesting. Could you, though, yourself, are you surprised how successful the Friday nights are? And could you see that as a direction of travel for this league? Or is it only a few teams that it really works for?
I'm not surprised it's been popular because Northern Ireland has quite a lot of amateur footballers playing on a Saturday. Like it's different in England where it's a Sunday morning leagues. Over here, it's all Saturday football. So, so many guys that would probably go to games or away playing for their own teams. So I think a Friday night is a good option for them. Plus, I think there's always something this old romantic, view of a night game, especially under lights. And I've been at Amber Park a few times in the evenings, and there's a great atmosphere. They have their outdoor entertainment and hospitality, and the guys go and watch the game, and then they go there, and it seems to be a real occasion. They could create a great atmosphere there. So that is obviously something that they have decided as a club that works for them both on the pitch and off the pitch. A wee bit surprised that more clubs haven't taken up the Sunday option yet. I know there's a game coming up next weekend, Cliftonville and Glentoran, but I thought maybe more clubs would maybe try that to see how that affected their the attendance figures, just as something different. And as far as being a Friday night league, I think there always will be teams that will go like the Larnes and will go down that route. And I think the TV aspect of it, more teams will give it a try. But I think there's still that inkling, in the league for a 3 p.m. Saturday kickoff.
I know I'm definitely lost without it on a Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
but you see the success of it. And something I wanted to ask you, because it's a ground you've spent a lot of time at over the years, and you've seen the success of the growth of the attendance there. I'm talking about up at the Coleraine Showgrounds. They're playing Glenavon away this weekend, but is there something that's been up there over the years that you could put your finger on that has seen Coleraine grow into a almost 2,000 on the regular attendance up there? That's amazing. That's, dare I say, the forbidden words, but that's almost full time standard of crowds. That is a huge, massive attendance, and particularly when you compare it back to 15 years ago, which I did a few weeks ago on the pod, it's night and day.
Yeah, I think you could even look at it's nearly tripled. The attendance figures have nearly tripled in size, which is phenomenal growth. I think at the heart of it, there has to be a product on the pitch that people like to go and see, because you're not going to get figures like that there if you're serving up rubbish and bad results. So ultimately, you have to serve up a good product. And I think that the club have done great work in the community in the last few years to try and bring everyone along with them. It's a massive catching area up here. Like you're talking, you can go the whole way to Limavady in one direction, and over to Ballycastle in the other direction, and there's a lot of people there that this would be their home football team. I think the club have tried to bring those people in. They have a massive academy set up, and it's getting those families from a young age in and getting involved in the club and bring them along with them. But the last 2 seasons there, the season tickets alone, over 1,000 season tickets sold is phenomenal for a team in the Irish League, particularly when you're saying that it's not one of the big two, that you really attract this crowd, and they've really built in that there. And I think it's great to see, because it's nothing as bad as I think as you go to a game and there's no crowd there, and it almost just takes a wee bit off the game when there's a big crowd there and you hear every ooh and ah and reacting to decisions. It just adds so much to the game.
So get them young, and they're all glory hunters. That's pretty much is
Pretty much.
what you're saying. Not at all, not at all. We all know it's all because of Piggy Bandsider. We'll go to Glenavon against Coleraine, Mournview Park. Will the Lurgan men keep on scoring? Will Mr. Shevlin remember how to score? Do you feel confident one way or the other? I do not think. I'm always on this podcast, you have to believe in the hot hand, and there's fewer hotter hands right now than Glenavon. So can I put you down for 3 or 4 goals for Micheál Glynn? on Saturday.
Oh, it's just the 4, is it?
Just the 4. Just the 4. And if he does score 4, I want you to go onto that pitch with the Northern Ireland Football Writers Player of the Month award and give it to him.
He'll deserve it if he does that.
He deserves it. He's won it already in my eyes.
It's funny. Corey had always a good record against Glenavon in recent seasons, up probably until the last maybe 3 or 4. I think there's been so many draws, and Glenavon have pulled out the odd one here and there. So Corey are going there, probably haven't beat Glenavon there for quite a while. The games up there are always exciting. There's always something happens. There's always plenty of goals, as you would expect me. Glenavon games, so I think it'll be more of the same on Saturday, and hopefully it's the fans go home entertained one way or the other.
I think they will. I think this is going to be a typical Glenavon madness of drama. I think this is a 3-3. Legit 3-3 with a potential red card. I believed in them getting a result against Cliftonville. It didn't happen. I believed in them against Glentoran, and it worked. So I think it's going to be a 3-3. And why not throw it in? Dodgy penalty, red card, the whole shebang. That'll be a fascinating one down there at Moorview Park.
I was at a 4-4 with a red card a couple of years ago between Corn and Glenavon, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
It's dime a dozen for Glenavon. It's just pinball football. But I was going to say maybe it was a chance for Coleraine to avenge that early season loss up at the showgrounds. So that if there's a game of the day, I believe it is going to be that. That's played on Saturday. Other games are played there. Crusaders stay at Seaview. They welcome up Newry City. They'll be feeling buoyed. They'll be feeling boisterous. But down there at Seaview, that tight pitch, I believe the home form of Crusaders truly has gone under the radar. If they get a result against Ballymena and they go into that Newry game, I can only see one outcome here, and that'll be a win for Crusaders.
Yeah, I think Monday night's a big game for them. They can, on the back of the Korean result, they can pick up another 3 points. I think they're struggling a wee bit injury wise. If a lot of big players are still out, Ben Kennedy, massive. Paul Heatley's still out, and if they're still able to sort of tick along and pick up a few results, that's huge for them. And but once they get those guys back, it's going to be even bigger. They'll hopefully they'll see themselves as being able to push on and maybe bring in the likes of Cliftonville and Glentoran and even Larne, and make it maybe a 4-horse race for the title as such.
It's interesting because Crusaders are only sitting here 6 points off Larne in first place, and Larne lose to Glentoran heavily. They go on a run. Crusaders get pushed around by Larne. They could go on a run. You never know. Crusaders could have passed that gene on to Coleraine if they get a result at the weekend against Glenavon. So yes, they're injured, but that team has little sparks that have come up. I've highlighted how much I think Macaulay Snellgrove is one of those few players that can just dance on the ball and break through and get the goal. Philip Laurie's in incredible form. They're staying tight-ish at the back. We'll see how they go. I don't think no matter how good, I know I said I always go for the hot hand and Newry are looking good. I think Seaview is just a big bucket of cold water no matter how good you are going. We go to I almost thought I was reading the fixtures from last week, but I am not. It's happening again. Portadown go to Taylor's Avenue to play against Carrick. It was a peak of the genre. It should be hung in a museum. Niall Curry's post-match interview against Carrick Rangers was a thing of beauty. He was so angry. He was so frustrated. And the quote of the entire thing was, "I could have played nets for Carrick Rangers." And I just thought, wow, that is telling your players how you feel. And I will fix this team with or without some of these players. So if there is a get right game, if there is a week where a manager should stick on any given Sunday and just fast forward to that Al Pacino speech, this is the one. Can Niall Curry turn it around at Taylor's Avenue? Mr. Crawford?
I am going to back Niall to get a result at Taylor's Avenue because I think
wow. I think you're the first person that's predicted Portadown anything on this podcast this season.
He was talking about it on Saturday, and how as you say, so much disappointment after that game, and particularly as he won the earlier in the season with Dundela and won quite convincingly. And I think we'd obviously had a game plan, and it just all completely fell apart. Saturday was a stepping stone, even though a 5-0 result looks horrific. I think there are positives for Niall to work with out of that. Now, this Carrick game coming up again is probably a good tester to see if the players have learned anything from that previous visit. They say a week's a long time in politics. It's a long time of football too. So I would say the words will be ringing in their ears as Niall sends them out the dressing room on Saturday. And it's up to them now to go and try and put on a performance for their manager. If they do manage to get anything out of it, it's a big confidence booster for them. As we talked about earlier, they seem to be lacking in confidence very, very badly. So this could be a turning point for them, but obviously it just depends whether the players can turn that 30-minute spell against Larne on Saturday into maybe a 60-minute spell, 70-minute spell, and they frustrate Carrick. And you never know what could happen on the day.
There's a turning point, and then there is a 180 handbrake turn, and I think that's what it would be required for Portadown. I'm gonna be kind to them. I'm going to say I think this is going to be a 0-0. I'm sure King was furious with how the result there against Newry. He'll not want to dwell on that. Coming home, playing against the bottom side in the division, he'll be sitting there pushing those players, saying, if you're not up to it, you're in trouble with me. So I'm going to say a 0-0, only because, yes, I somewhat saw that improved performance from Portadown against Larne, but they are some ghosts to bust down there at Taylor's Avenue. And the game of the weekend, an absolute stormer. Sit back next Sunday, chill out in the pub or chill out wherever if you've got a subscription. The Sky Sports cameras, they're keeping them here in Belfast for a week, and they're going to the Oval where Cliftonville take on Glentoran. This always feels like such a juicy fixture, mainly because how many players have swapped between them, usually from Cliftonville to Glentoran. And Glentoran licking their wounds is an understatement. Cliftonville have had their poor days as well, but they'll be up for this, I think. And I'm going to back Cliftonville to get to the Oval and get a result to pour more woe onto Glentoran. I just believe it.
I think a big factor is that the Cliftonville can sit now for just over a week and not put their feet up, but just sit and watch, see what happens. A big 2 game on Tuesday night, and that'll be add a bit more fuel to Paddy's sort of team talk and tactics. And if the Glens come out of that, with maybe not a result that they would want, or maybe picking up injuries or suspensions, then they get into the Cliftonville game with that added pressure. If they can get a result on Tuesday night, which they're more capable of doing, given their performance against Linfield, a matter of weeks ago, that will give them a major boost going into Saturday, or Sunday, sorry. But it's all the makings to be an absolute classic. So it does. Like, these two have packed to the brim with quality players, and both like to play. And I think that'll be a great advertisement. As that's probably scudded it now, and it'll be a boring 0-0 draw. But potentially, it has all the aspects of being a great football match.
Not to pat myself in the back, but I'm going to do it anyway. When it came to that Cliftonville Linfield game, I just thought that screamed 0-0, as we said in the podcast. It was. And I do not think this one will be. I think there'll be entertainment regardless if there's not a huge abundance of goals. And yes, you're right. You're talking about Tuesday night. We're talking about Linfield Glentoran in the County Antrim Shield. Yes, it is a minor competition, but when either of these two teams play each other, there's a spark. That's juicy, my friend, of how that could go. So yes, we could be sitting here very differently after how that game wraps up. But I am going to back the man, Ryan Curran, the forgotten man. He's going to pop up and he is going to get the goals, I think, there for Cliftonville. Stephen, it's really, really great to have you on. Good to sit down and chat some shop and all the rest. I wonder here with the World Cup coming up, because one of the big proponents or the big debates and chats that people would say if they were advocates of, and I say one of these banned words, summer football, is that people are sitting around, they're watching the World Cup, and there's no Premier League football, and they're ravenous. They just can't wait to go out and watch some football, and they're walking down with their son, and they see a big banner on the wall saying, "Oh, football this way." I'm interested, how do these two discussions conflate? Will the bad weather still put them off, or will the fact that all this World Cup action, they're just going to be so hungry for football after watching Japan, Cameroon, they just can't wait to go out and watch Glentoran, Cliftonville on the TV?
I hope there would be an appetite, and I think there's an opportunity there for Irish league clubs to try and encourage people to come along. Maybe if the timings of games and depending on when the Irish League games are on, if you could work it around that people come and watch either before or after, So I think this is opportunities for clubs to look at that and trying to get people in the door that, as you say, maybe would rather sit in a bar on a Saturday and watch Premier League or Scottish League or travel across the water to watch that type of football. Because to be honest with you, I've watched my fair share of Premier League games the last few years, and some of it has actually bores me to death. It's just too many sideways passes and things like that there. Whereas the Irish League, you get what you pay for. You get good, honest football, and guys going out, and I think people undervalue the quality it's on show at times. We're just talking there about Conor McMenamin at the start of the show, and he Grace Sunday football pitch. He's a quality player, and there's a lot of guys throughout the leagues that would and entertain us all. And I think it's just trying to encourage those guys to come out and actually watch these and give your local club a chance.
I'm waiting to see what club busts out. We've seen Oktoberfests, we've seen barbecues. What club is going to do the Christmas market? I want to go to an outside Christmas market down at Taylor's Avenue or something, just to get in on the action.
Get some burgers on a go kangaroo.
Absolutely. Well, you get a wee beard on Winky Murphy, and we could have like a Santa at the end. Fantastic. Steven, it's been an absolute delight having yourself on with your experience. It's been great to have you. How are you enjoying your new gig? Are you getting out to games more? Is it different than different speed to what you're usually up to?
Yeah, I've been to quite a lot of games since I moved over to Belfast Live, and it's great because you're not only getting to watch the games, but you're getting to catch up with people afterwards, and do a lot of pieces off the back of what's happening at the games. And this week in particular is going to be very busy. Obviously, it was Friday night and at Portadown on Saturday, and now tomorrow night at the Cruise, and then Tuesday night at the Big Two, and then probably Ballymena on Friday night. So I'm getting the full of football, and lucky enough, there could be worse things I could be doing as a job. It's not bad getting paid to go and watch football matches.
This is where we also slander the Premier League here. It could be worse. You could watch Premier League. But yeah. Yes, no, absolute delight. Great to have you on, and hopefully I'll be chatting to you very, very soon. Cheers.
Yeah, I hope so. Cheers.
And there we are. That is that. Big thank you to Steven for joining me. A couple of more fresh faces coming to the pod over the next few weeks. And if you want to hear about it all first, there is a place called Twitter. You can follow me there on @KickingMatch. Come on, get in. It's like the end of MySpace. Follow me while you still can. We can have all these wonderful memories of the times where I used to post up things and I used to fire little photos and all the rest. So you can follow me there while that platform still exists. You can also maybe follow me on other platforms that will hopefully exist beyond the next few months and weeks. I am on Instagram. I am also on Facebook. And if you want to mix it up, maybe you're kicking some fancy dinner over the next while, or you're sitting in your living room with a fancy book or whatever it is, you can listen to me via smart speaker. You can do that via saying, "Hey, smart speaker," or whatever you're called. Remember to do your voice, guys. That's very, very important. And say, "Please play Kicking Match, an Irish League podcast." That wee bit where it says an Irish League podcast, for some reason that's really important. So say the full thing. I will say the title. I don't know how it's going to pronounce this week's title, but we'll give it a go all the same. Thanks for listening. Hope you're well. Enjoy the next week of games. Cheerio. A fond adieu.